You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves, they do it again. Number 4 in a row. Final score tonight versus Golden State, 107-90. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow at JRBorman13. Tons to break down tonight, including the Wolves' defensive domination. It's back. Plus, Ant-Man goes beast mode late in the fourth quarter. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, man. Wolves trying to make it 4 in a row. 5th straight versus Golden State. They haven't lost to them since 2020, believe it or not. So Warriors, second half of a back-to-back. They whooped up on Houston last night. Fast forward, they're up 10 at halftime, okay? A lot of turnovers by both teams in the third quarter. Things kind of looked a little sloppy for both teams coming out of halftime, but Warriors chip away, down 6, and then in the fourth quarter, more of this suffocating defense we've seen as of late, combined with you got superstar Ant-Man activated. He went off. He closed this thing down late, 30 points on the night. Why don't you just start maybe with Ant-Man actually looking like that superstar that he is, and then we'll talk about the defense here in a minute.
Yeah, no question. For Anthony Edwards, was absolutely tremendous. He checked in a little bit earlier than he normally does in the fourth quarter. The Warriors got it down to 3 points. I think it was 80-77. I think is the number I want to say I had in my head.
That sounds right. Yeah.
He comes in, he immediately generates a 7-0 run, hits a crazy skip pass to the opposite corner for Mike Conley for a buzzer beater, 3 at the shot clock buzzer, and then comes down, has that four-point play, screaming at the Warriors bench across the court, and then throws a really nice pass to Rudy down low for a dunk to kind of, just get everyone involved, and really made his presence felt right away in the fourth quarter. And I just thought that, for him, he had 11 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter, had 4 assists, only 1 turnover. I thought that the tone that he set after checking back in, I don't know whether or not Chris Finch said something to him or not, but it sure felt like Ant, kind of sensed that he needed to take the game by the horns. And it was something that he really had not done to that point in the game. And I think that's kind of the beauty of Ant, is that even within a game, you can just see him spend most of the game just kind of taking it as it goes, and not forcing it, taking what the defense is giving him, making the smart, correct passes to his teammates. He got doubled, blitzed off of pick and rolls almost the whole entire game, and obviously, struggled with it at times. I think, for Andy, had 4 turnovers tonight. You'd certainly like to see him have fewer than that. But I mean, if he's going to get blitzed all night, and he's going to end up with a season high 9 assists, and he's going to find ways, early in the game, got Jaden McDaniels involved with a couple of passes. He made a couple of threes early in the game, which was huge. It's just plays like that. And then, by the time, the fourth quarter rolls around and he's made enough plays that the defense isn't necessarily doubling him with every single time he's touching the basketball. He's just really evolved in the ways that, he's gotten off the ball and then gotten back on it later in the possession, whether it's that 2-man game with Rudy Gobert, passing the ball and going to the corner and then coming off a pin down, whatever the case may be, running out in transition or semi-transition to try to, be able to attack downhill against a player that, is cross-matched, is not generally supposed to be guarding him. So I just think all the different ways that Ant impacted the game in the fourth quarter were just spectacular. And for him to kind of do it all within the flow, I think, it didn't really feel like he was forcing it necessarily.
Yeah.
Just felt, there's a way to take a game over without forcing everything. It would be one thing if he took like 15 shots in the fourth quarter or something like that and was just jacking a shot up on every single time down the floor, but it wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. It was just, he was doing, making the right reads, and a lot of those reads were to be a score in the fourth quarter, and he certainly delivered. And I think that was the most fired up we've seen Anthony Edwards maybe all season, after he made that after he made that three and was just screaming, yeah, at everyone to hear it in Chase Center, and was screaming at Steph Curry as he was, on the bench, and screaming at Draymond as he was walking back to the bench, and Mike Conley's dying laughing on the bench. His aunt coming back, still screaming, yeah, for the 17th time.
You love to see it, man. You love to see it.
Jaden's just, winding up the towel and smacking him as he's coming back to the bench. So I just think, for Ant to do that was pretty remarkable, considering that it didn't look great after Steph. They turn it over. Steph hits that 3-pointer buzzer beater to go in. Steph, kind of gets going a little bit there too at the start of the fourth quarter. You're thinking, oh geez, here we go. But again, like you said, second night of a back-to-back for the Warriors. They lost Andrew Wiggins at just after halftime. Had a left ankle impingement that he re-aggravated. He was a game-time decision tonight. They also lost Moses Moody after halftime from an inflamed knee. So the Warriors had to dig a little deeper into their bench, and that's why you saw some of those really clunky lineups that struggled to score for stretches in the second half. But again, you just got to give credit to the Wolves for just continuing to grind away at it and kind of overwhelming now the third team in a row with, this is the third game in a row the Wolves were playing a team on the second night of back-to-back, and it just felt like they overwhelmed all three of them with better energy, better effort, better intensity. And that's exactly what you need to do when you've got fresh legs against a team that does not. So big credit to the Wolves for doing that. And, like we said, it's the fourth straight game that they've won. I think that's part of the reason why Ant was fired up, is the fourth straight game they've won since he kind of teared into everyone and called everyone soft as hell, and said that, internally they were soft as hell and needed to find a way to be able to talk to each other and come together. And it seems like that's what they've done. And this was the first game in that 4-game win streak that it really felt like Ant was super impactful offensively. So that was obviously nice to see. And I'd be remiss too if I did not mention that Julius Randle did not play in the fourth quarter. This was a D'Angelo Russell game from Julius Randle, where he did a lot of good things offensively at different points, a lot of confounding things offensively at different points, and really didn't give you anything at all defensively, and was benched for the fourth quarter because of it. And I just think that and we'll get into it a little later, but Naz Reid's positional versatility is pretty crazy, and we're now more than a third of the way through the season, and more than a fourth of the way through the season. And a lot of the numbers are bearing out that the Timberwolves are just a lot better with Naz Reid in the ball game compared to Julius Randle. And I think the leash needs to be rather short with Randle when you've got, the best backup four in the NBA waiting right behind.
Well, I was going to bring that up, segment 2 here, a couple minutes before we got to go to segment 2, which we'll break down this defense a little bit more in depth. But Naz Reid, again, was just so fun to just sit down. If you just sat down and watched Naz Reid, even if the shots aren't falling, he only had 9 points, but block of the night on Draymond in the fourth quarter, that led to a Na 3-pointer. That put him up, I want to say 12, but 10 boards, 4 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I mean, go a little deeper on Naz Reid tonight, and maybe how his role has changed a little bit from last year to now, but you're still seeing like the same big impact player night in and night out, regardless of the points, regardless of the box score.
Yeah, no question about it. I think for Naz Reid, it's just the energy that he plays with. I mean, we've seen him, run around against LeBron and defend LeBron. We've seen him run shooters off the line. We've seen him, rotate to protect the rim like he did against Draymond Green in the fourth quarter tonight, which was just kind of the exclamation on top of everything. And I think my favorite thing about Naz Reid is he knows that his energy plays get his teammates going at a rate that's, exponentially higher than his teammates. And so I think because he senses that, he knows that, okay, I've got to bust my behind and give it my 110% on every single play. And that's, I think, why a lot of fans are clamoring for Naz Reid to play more minutes than Julius, is that it is so easy to tell that Julius Randle just does not put anywhere near the amount of effort in on the defensive end of the floor as Naz Reid does. And Naz Reid has been an offensive first player his entire basketball life. And for him to recognize, like, okay, I can still be an offensive first guy, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to bust my tail defensively and give my teammates everything that I have in me every single night. And that's, I think, just why this fan base adores him. It's why all of his teammates adore him, and it's why Chris Finch adores him and just continues to find ways to get him into the game. And it doesn't matter whether he's playing. He played the 3 last year. It doesn't matter whether he's playing the 5 this year or anything in between. It seems like every single lineup that he's a part of has more energy, has more effort and intensity on both ends of the floor because of the way that he plays the game. And I think the way that he plays on both ends of the floor gives energy to his teammates. And it's just a lot of fun to watch, because not only does he make quick decisions on offense, but he doesn't really make selfish plays. He doesn't, take shots that are out of character or, do things that, are beyond the bounds of his skill set, which I personally really appreciate. And I think lends itself to much more efficient offense. And it's a reason why I think this team tends to find a better offensive rhythm when he's on the floor. But for me, with Naz Reid, I just think the most valuable thing about him is his defensive versatility. And you totally see that shine, and you see that playmaking shine a little bit more when he's playing out there alongside guys like Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Rudy Gobert. So it's been a lot of fun. And I think that you'll see Naz Reid continue to, chip into the minutes that Julius Randle is playing, even if that hurts Randle's trade value a little bit as we continue to inch closer towards the trade deadline, because I know that we're still 3 months away from that, but that's certainly a conversation whose volume is only going to get louder and louder and louder over the
Yeah,
weeks.
a lot of different layers to those conversations for sure. Plenty more deep dive in this one. Got to talk about this dominating defensive surge as of late. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, they're giving you a chance at a huge return, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when your first $5 bet wins. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some NBA future action while you're there. Anthony Edwards MVP odds sitting at 10-1 right now. Still feels like some great value. All sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, man, this defensive surge the last handful of games, 4 straight games allowing under 95 points, I think I saw in your notes. Talk to me about where it all kind of got sparked from and what, is the #1 catalyst, I guess, behind it all of a sudden, compared to the first 17, 18 games or so when they just didn't have this same type of tenacity like we saw last year in their #1 defense in the league.
Yeah, I remember a conversation that we had, when I got into my bunker at Target Center 10 days ago after that the Rockets game. And you just asked me, why are you laughing? And I just said, I think the flip might've been switched or the switch might've been flipped defensively in that third quarter against Houston. Their activity level was way up. Their drop defense was much, much better. They did a way better job of forcing teams to shoot above the break threes, long twos, and short mid-range twos instead of getting all the way to the rim and spraying the ball out to the corners. And that's exactly what we've continued to see from the Timberwolves since that time over the last 4 or 5 games since then. I think that they lost to the Kings in the game following that, but again, that was a really strong defensive performance. For the majority of that game, it was mostly the offense that plagued them in that game. And since then, like you said, 4 games of the Timberwolves holding teams to 95 points or less. And, we already touched on Naz Reid's positional versatility, but I think that's been a huge part of it. Again, with the energy And the perimeter defense, I think, has been really, really strong. Again, tonight, the Warriors starting backcourt of Steph Curry and Brendan Pajemski, started 2 of 10 from the floor and I believe 1 of 6 from 3. So the Wolves did a really good job of pressuring them in pick and roll and forcing them to make tough contested passes. I think the way that they kind of led ball handlers into crowds where they knew they had help and made cross-court skip passes more difficult and really made the Warriors have to swing the ball the entire way around the perimeter rather than, making a pass to two guys away or 3 guys away. And that just gives the defense a little bit more time to rotate on the backside and not have to just fly by contest on jump shooters, and allows them to, more traditionally close out like you have in that 3rd and 4th grade basketball practice, like we all learned growing up. So I think the more that they're able to do that, keep the ball in front of you, it's been really good. And Rudy Gobert has been a world killer defensively. Yeah. He's been amazing on that end of the floor. He hasn't been in any type of foul trouble. He's been not only defending the rim super, super well, but he's been deterring players from the rim. And we've seen opponents short mid-range frequency, so that 4 to 14 feet range, so outside the restricted area below the free throw line, the rate at which opponents are taking shots from that area has been way up over this 4-game stretch. And tonight, Golden State was 8 of 24 in the short mid-range. Just 13 field goal attempts allowed at the rim, which is absolutely incredible. And it's also, a hat tip to Naz Reid and the way that that crew has been defending the rim when Rudy Gobert has been off the floor, because there have been plenty of metrics that bear out that the Wolves, without Rudy Gobert, their interior defense was pretty poor for the first 12, 13, 14 games. And it's been much better since, over this winning streak. And then again, forced Golden State to take a lot of above the break threes, kept them out of the corner for the most part. Golden State was 7 of 30 on above the break threes. So it was really a good thing for the Timberwolves to just keep them in the middle of the floor and prevent them from getting super efficient shots. And then, there were just a few really good stretches where the Wolves, defended Golden State and kept them out of the paint. And when they did get in the paint, they forced turnovers. Yeah. They forced really tough contested shots. And as a result of that, there were 2 different stretches for at least 6 minutes in which Golden State scored just 2 points. So the Wolves won a 23-2 run in the second quarter. That was from about the 11:40 mark of the second quarter down to about the 2:38 mark of the second quarter. Only allowed 2 points in that stretch, which is absolutely insane in an NBA game. I would be shocked if that's not the longest stretch that a team has gone with scoring 2 or fewer points this entire season. And then they won in a 17-2 run in the fourth quarter. So just gave up 2 points over 6 minutes and change. And I just think that, again, turnovers were a huge part of that. Golden State had 17 turnovers tonight, and 12 of them were live ball turnovers. So again, you'd probably like to see the Timberwolves score a little bit more than 17 points off of 22 turnovers. I think if you want to poke a hole at anything, I think their transition offense tonight was pretty poor. But again, how many opportunities they had to get out in transition, and they pushed it off of stops really well. And I think the other thing too is that when you're able to come up with stops on one end of the floor, and you're able to play really strong defense on a consistent basis, it makes it much more difficult for the opponent's defense. I think when the other team isn't taking the ball to the basket, you're not getting your defense set up on the other end. So I think that the Timberwolves have done a really good job of just leaning into what they can control every single night, and that's their defense for the most part. So again, 2 quarters tonight in which the Warriors scored less than 20 points. We've become accustomed to seeing that over this run. So that's been a lot of fun. And I think, the times in which Golden State's offense really got going, 11-2 run over the final 2:38 of the second quarter. That was when Draymond Green was at the 5. So I'd keep an eye out for that on Sunday as something that the Warriors may try to go back to a little bit more. Just because they were at their most efficient offensively. They were playing with really good pace, which is, I think, been kind of at the core of when their offense has been successful this year. They get out and run. They want to shoot a lot of transition threes, and they get to the rim and they score in the fast break. They've been top half of the league in fast break points in the paint, second chance points. They're an excellent they're an excellent team on both backboards. So I just think that, for the Wolves to just really make sure that they don't get spread out too much in those minutes, or at least, maybe even consider putting Jaden McDaniels at the 4 and Naz Reid at the 5 in that type of lineup. I just don't think that Julius Randle can be on the floor if they're going to put Draymond Green at the 5, just with how much space is on the floor. I just think it'd be really difficult for the Wolves to stay on their defensive concepts if that's the case, just because I think you're going to be asking too much of a guy that's to this point proven that he can't just stay locked in on the defensive end of the floor for extended stretches. So, I think for the Wolves tonight, to force as many turnovers as they did, as many bad possessions as Golden State had, 39% from the floor, 28% from 3, only gave up 17 free throws, I think is a really solid night overall from a Timberwolves team that has really found their fastball again defensively. And I think that, all of it's just predicated on their perimeter defense and getting after it. And then, that just makes life a lot easier for Rudy Gobert on the back end and gives him a lot more confidence to be more aggressive and do his thing on the back end.
About 90 seconds before we go to segment 3, I'm going to give you 3 topics. You take one, whatever one you feel like was more important tonight or behooves this team the most. Great offensive assist night. I know you mentioned that 80% rate, their third best assist percentage you have in your notes all season. Paint points, you mentioned that as well, 44-30 advantage Wolves. Offensive rebounds, 9 for the Wolves. That led to 19 points. Huge advantage, like you just mentioned, versus a really great rebounding team versus the Warriors. Which one of those 3 kind of topics or team stats jumps out to you the most and is maybe the most impressive and, maybe the most, conducive for not only tonight, but the big picture when you think of the Wolves and how they're built, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the assist percentage. Just because the Wolves are 5-1 so far this season when they tally 30 or more assists like they did tonight. They had 32 assists. So that 21 turnover mark is a little easier to stomach when you have 32 assists, but also you think, man, what could have this night been if you get up more shots, if half those turnovers are more shots, what are you looking at a 25-point win here or a 30-point win? So I think we can dive a little deeper into that. I think there's some meat on the bone there with the Timberwolves pick and roll offense. I think turning a corner a little bit.
100%. Well said there. All right, couple minutes left. Let's talk about this rematch versus the Warriors. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule, it's packed with, could be work projects, whatever it may be. It's easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, well, the non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Golden State rematch Sunday night. They've got a 5-game winning streak to keep alive here versus Golden State. Again, I mentioned it earlier at the top, but they haven't lost to Golden State since 2020. I don't know, top 2 or 3 things you're most keyed in on, I guess, for that one coming up as far as adjustments go or anything else that you might be keying in on for that one.
Yeah, I think the Draymond at the 5 one is an interesting point. I think if Andrew Wiggins does not go in that game, Moses Moody does not go in that game, I think that 2 guys that were out for the second half tonight, I think those are interesting storylines just because those are 2 guys that they have that are available to guard Anthony Edwards. And if you don't want to guard Anthony Edwards with either of those 2 guys, it just becomes an interesting conversation because Kuminga is probably far too slight to guard Anthony Edwards. Brandon Pajemski is too small to guard Anthony Edwards. Is Draymond Green quick enough laterally to do it? Gary Payton is certainly quick enough laterally, has the kind of the smarts and the hands to be able to do it, but he's pretty slight of frame too. So it's just, there's not really a perfect matchup for Anthony Edwards. So I think it'll be a really good opportunity for him to, shine as a playmaker again, because I think they're going to have to double him. And a key part of that, it kind of segues into the assist percentage that we're talking about, is I think the Timberwolves did a really good job of getting off the ball early in those situations and passing it around the perimeter really, really well. They created a lot of really strong, good open 3-point opportunities. They just didn't knock them down tonight. I mean, you look at the, you look at the Wolves, only 57.5% true shooting. I mean, it certainly felt like the quality of looks they got, could have had that number creep up towards 65%, which is obviously a great mark. So I think those are all things that you want to see. I think you want to see the Timberwolves shoot a little bit better than 33% from three with the quality of looks that they had. I'm not going to sit here and say that Ant's going to have 9 assists again, but it would not surprise me if he had, 6 or 7 assists. And I think the Wolves did a great job of playing behind the defense in those 4-on-3 situations. And that was a huge reason why they got into the paint. They had 20, what they had, I think they were sitting on like 22 paint points early in the second quarter. So they really kind of fell off a little bit until that onslaught in the fourth quarter. But I think their pick and roll game was really good. And I think they cut really well off of the pick and roll game, and the synergy numbers bear that out. I mean, the Timberwolves had an offensive rating of 146 on plays that, were finished by players who cut. So, plays that ended in a turnover or a shot attempt for players who cut. That's a tremendous mark. Obviously, anything above 120 is an awesome offensive rating. So that's something that was really good. And I think too, you saw Mike Conley get into the paint as a pick and roll scorer, which was nice to see. That's something that I think he's really struggled with for the most part this season. His 2-point shooting has not been very good. So for him to be able to do that was huge. You saw Ant throw a few lobs for Rudy. That was really important. And you saw Dante DiVincenzo in the first half had a really good stretch playmaking. And again, he wasn't really a guy that's going to stand out a ton when you look at the box score, but just another really solid playmaking game for him with 6 assists and just 1 turnover. That's exactly what you want. I thought that he had a bunch of really, really solid passes to Naz Reid when, Dante was getting blitzed in pick and roll, because he played for the Warriors. So the Warriors and Steve Kerr really understand the type of shooter that he is and what he can do on the drive. So they wanted to try to get the ball out of his hands early when he was uncomfortable. But he made a lot of really good passes to Naz Reid, who got downhill and finished several times in that first half. But also, he had 4 assists himself, so he was pretty good on the short roll. So I think that, again, the Timberwolves are going to really have to continue to take care of the ball and make smart decisions when the Warriors are blitzing them or doubling them off in pick and roll, because they've got guys who can do it. It's just a matter of consistently doing it over and over again. And I think then when you're not running pick and roll, again, should be a good matchup for Julius Randle, considering that Draymond Green did not start. So earlier on in the game, I don't hate the idea of going to Julius Randle on the block against someone like Jonathan Kuminga if he's not guarding Ant. So that he was pretty successful in doing that early in the game tonight. So I think, if he can do that, or, optionally you get the ball to Jaden McDaniels, try to get him some, scoring opportunities because Steph Curry's guarding him. I think those are 2 mismatches that you want to try to see the Timberwolves, kind of needle a little bit more, just because you can't ask Ant to, go against 2 guys the whole entire game. I think you've got to at least be able to take some pressure off of him without having the ball in his hands, because you just don't want to just totally wear him out. But those are definitely some things that I'd like to see the Wolves continue, as well as their offensive rebounding in this game. 9 offensive rebounds for 19 second chance points is an excellent mark against a Warriors team that's been right up there in the top 5, 6, 7 teams in rebounding all year long.
Draymond always good for just 1 technical a game? Is that just how it works? Like, I don't sit down and watch a lot of Golden State, obviously. Did you see the technical? I'm assuming you did, obviously. What'd you think? He flopped on the floor there for a good 35 seconds, and then he got up. I'm sure the entire stadium could hear him screaming at that ref there. I felt bad.
Yeah, you just knew it was coming. Like the second he
You
hit the
did.
ground and there
It was
wasn't a foul call, you knew it was coming. What was odd about it was they showed the replay and it seemed like it was Draymond's own fault. Randall didn't really
Yeah,
hit
I'm
him
not
that
going
much.
to act like if I was in that position, I wouldn't have flopped to the floor either, but I'm not a professional. It didn't look like much, right?
But
Right?
even
You're
if you
right.
get hit in the face,
Yeah,
you don't flop back like that and land
right.
hard on your back.
Right. Didn't make
So
sense. Yeah.
I don't know if he was frustrated about something else. I don't know if he was frustrated that Rudy Gobert had another awesome game,
Right.
17
He
points and
might
11
be.
rebounds.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of and ones where Draymond was the guy who fouled him. So that's obviously
I thought
something that
Slow-Mo got
Draymond
away
doesn't
with
love.
an and one, by the way, on Rudy on a nice dunk there, too. What were your vibes seeing Slow-Mo up close and personal? Happy, sad, you miss him? What were your vibes? Slow-Mo,
Sad,
revenge
man.
game. It's tough, right?
The Warriors, you saw some of those
Tough.
lineups that they put out where their offense was just out there dying. And you've got guys like, Pat Spencer and Trace Jackson Davis in the game who both are just not NBA players right now, especially with Trace Jackson Davis struggling to finish around the rim for a guy that's his size and isn't really a shooter. So you expect to see more of Kyle Anderson handling the ball, especially if Andrew Wiggins is out and the rotation gets shortened a little bit and they're going to get into some of these funkier lineups. They're going to struggle with turnovers. It's just, man, I don't know what you paid Kyle Anderson that money for if you're not willing to use him in this situation. But again, for the Warriors tonight, 11-man rotation for the Warriors tonight.
It's wild.
13 guys played, but 11-man rotation, really.
It's so if Steve Kerr was coaching this Wolves lineup, would we be watching Terrence Shannon on a nightly basis right now? Or what would this look like?
You'd probably be watching, Josh Minot, Rob
Garza.
Dillingham, and probably Garza, and then maybe Terrence Jr. on some nights. So
crazy, dude. It's crazy.
It's wild. Part of it is a measure to try to protect Steph Curry and Draymond Green from playing too many minutes.
Sure. No,
but
I
mean, I get it. It's crazy. Golden State Warriors fans are probably losing their minds on
They
some
gotta
level.
be, right? They gotta be. Great stuff, man. As always, Wolves make it 4 in a row. 5th straight versus Golden State. Final score tonight, 107-90. Ant-Man, 30 points. They moved to 12-10 now all of a sudden. 2 games above 500 on the year. As always, hey, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. You guys coming in the chat, venting, celebrating, whatever it may be, game to game. Make sure you make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Jack if you haven't already. If you haven't already, what are you doing? But it's at JR Borman 13. He's usually live from the Target Center during every home game. Again, Wolves versus Warriors, Game 2, the rematch. That's Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. Catch you right here. Same time, same place. But until then,